my job is not to create a product anymore. My job is to create a team that is going to create the product. So you need to be ready to be less focused on the product and more focused on building the teams that build the product.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the SaaS Revolution Show, brought to you by SaaStock, the conference that helps SaaS companies get traction, growth and scale. I'm your host Alex Theuma, and I'll be looking at what it really takes to build and grow a SaaS company today, and how founders and entrepreneurs stay healthy on the journey. Now on with the show.
Welcome to another live edition of the SaaS Revolution Show. I'm your host, Alex Theuma, CEO, founder of SaaStock. We are at SaaStock 2023 in Dublin, day one, and I am joined by Lucie Buisson. Buisson, okay, who is the Chief Product Officer at Contentsquare. Welcome, Lucie.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, great to have you. And as we were saying before we kind of kicked off, you've literally just flown in from New York. But the adrenaline is keeping you going.
Very high.
Very high. Good. High on SaaStock drugs, but not really.
No, the energy of the event is really good. Yeah.
Good. No, it definitely helps. It definitely helps. And you spoke earlier today. What did you speak about? What was the topic?
We talked about multi-product strategy and how to start building. Why starting building a multi-product strategy? When to start, and etc. And I think one of the main points we were making is like multi-product strategy is maybe one of the most sustainable way you have to grow, you know? Yeah. Because if you sell to your customer, your cost of acquisition is much lower than brand new customer. And with like increased pressure on every one of us to be more profitable. And I think it's becoming a more and more interesting strategy, you know?
So I guess selfish question for me, like in terms of like when do you start? Because like SaaStock, we're 8 years old. We sort of lost 2 years to COVID, but you know we're 8 years old as a business. Our main product is we're in it. The conference in Dublin. And we launched a second product, actually sort of like towards the end of COVID, which is our memberships product. And you know, we do find, whilst it's going well, there are complexities in, I guess, having a second product. The team initially being really kind of focused on events. Now we've got a different service and a different product. Getting the resource, you know, like how do we do that? You know, who do we hire first within the team? And like, you know, is it marketing to build up the leads, etc. So definitely there have been some challenges, and like wondering, like like how do you solve some of the challenges, but also like you talked to or you mentioned a little bit about like when is the right time. It's something that you probably spoke about. And so when is the right time? Do you think, certainly as a SaaS company, that you have to be at a certain ARR to bring in product number two? Yeah,
completely. And I think you're completely right. I think it's a question of ARR. For me, it's really a question of market fit also. You need to make sure that your first product is generating traction and retaining customer, and like that you have validation from the market on this product is actually solving a real need. And your customer love using it and they are staying with you. Because if you try to create a second product without having proven the value on the first product, now it's like you are trying to fight on two battlegrounds at the same time, and it's too tough, you know?
No, for sure. And so tell us about like, how like Contentsquare did it then. So what was the ARR for Contentsquare for product number two? What was product number two? Obviously, you said your customers must have told you they wanted it. And it also, maybe, and this is probably sort of later, I mean, sometimes you actually acquire that product as well.
Exactly.
And so Hotjar was a company that you acquired.
Yes.
But what product number was that? So a few questions there. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So for Contentsquare, it was, Contentsquare is 12 years now.
Yeah.
I've been with the company 10 years.
Okay.
And when I started is when we were having our first self-service offer, because initially Contentsquare was already creating its own product, collecting data. We are on a digital experience analytics platform for those who don't know. And but we were doing mainly consulting for our customer. So when I started is when we started having like self-serve customer. And the 3 first years were really about how do you go from a product that is used only by your own data analyst to make ad hoc analysis and ad hoc recommendation to a product that can be used by practitioner, and that you can use on a daily, on a weekly basis instead of once a year or twice a year to create a roadmap. So 3 first year were really about creating the product market fit, and then we started the geographical expansion. This is when we had our first big round of founding, and we opened our office in the UK and then in the US. And the second product came from that geographical expansion, because when we arrived in the US, we realized that the market has been educated a bit differently, and that the use case that we've been developing in France and in Europe were not the same in the US, on our side, it was more about journey mapping and heat mapping to understand where your customers are interacting. And in the US, it was much more around identifying errors, identifying performance issues, so more on the technical side, So we started to develop this new product, and it was pretty interesting because US-based competition was more advanced than us on those new use cases, but we were much more advanced than them on what were our initial use cases. So then it goes back to a question you asked me a little bit later, which is how do you create the right focus in order to develop those new use cases? And also, how do you create the right expertise, right? Because for us, it's the same than for you. It's not the same skills you need to produce a podcast and to produce an event and to create a membership, right?
Yeah, sure.
So for us, it was the same. It's not the same skills to be able to build a product for marketers than to build a product for more technical teams.
Yeah.
So there is a huge part which is building the right team, getting the right skills in, but also setting the right direction for your team. An example I was sharing this morning is at Contentsquare, the product team is evaluated against weekly active user.
Yep.
So our North Star metric is weekly active user. And if you say to the team, tell me about the best opportunity to improve weekly active user, most of the things they're going to do is on your product number 1, because this is where you have the most user, and so this is where you have the biggest potential of growth. So if you want them to focus on new use case, it's not rocket science, but you have to tell them, I want you to grow weekly active user for this specific persona. So in our case, I want to have more weekly active user in the tech team. I don't care about growing the marketing weekly active user. Mm-hmm. And by giving this kind of guidance, you start shifting the focus and the prioritization of the team. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so product number 2 came in. I don't know what you can share in terms of how the company looked or the revenue line looked, but as you introduced product number 2, was there some sort of inflection point where we say, okay, we're doing 20 million a year at 20% year over year growth rate, and then all of a sudden we're doing 40, 50, we're growing faster?
I think I'm going to speak directionally because I don't remember the exact number, but I would say that when we opened the UK office and the US office, we were maybe at 30 million of ARR. Then one of our first acquisition was Clicktail, which was one of our competitors. Yeah. But they were much more. They have a much bigger penetration in the US. Yeah. So we acquired them in order to increase our US penetration. Yeah. And I think at the end of that year, we were closer to 100 million. Okay. And this is when we launched the second product because we needed that product to be successful in the US. Yeah. And then the second product that is more technical, we did an acquisition with a company named Dareboost in order to buy an additional use cases that our competition were not having, So, and where I'm going with that is I think what was interesting is you can have your new products that can be a mix of things that you are organically building and things that you are acquiring, our Find and Fix product, which is the second one, half of it we did it in-house, or 70% we did it in-house, and 30% we bought.
What about in terms of getting to that second product, maybe some of the biggest issues that you had and faced that you can kind of remember around that, like whether the mistakes or whatever, but that obviously have been sort of rectified since then. But what are the mistakes maybe that were made and lessons learned from that?
Yeah, sure. So I think for me the biggest lesson learned is you need to start small. Mm-hmm. So when you are launching your second product, like people know you already. Like your customers, they have like a quite high expectation in terms of quality. So you are not a startup anymore. You are not a mini company anymore. Mm-hmm. So you can't afford iterating or like not having your values that is nailed with too many customers. So really important to go through an alpha, a beta, and a progressive deployment phase. So let's say in your alpha phase, you're going to have internal customer using it. And then in your beta phase, you're going to have maybe 5 or 10 customers that love innovation, they are early adopters. And what you're fixing for them is so important that if your product is not perfect, they don't care. Yeah. And you learn from them, you upgrade the product, you continue building on the product thanks to their feedback. Yeah. And once you have that validation that, yes, they would buy it and there is a real need, you start having maybe 50 or 100 customers if you're enterprise, and maybe 1,000 or 5,000 if you are like product-led growth. And you continue learning, and this time you have data to learn. And so you can validate another phase. And now you know how to pitch it, you know how to onboard your customer, and you are sure of your value, and you can go full speed on deploying your product.
Obviously, I can't talk to a chief product officer without talking about AI. Right? You knew it was going to come at some point. And obviously, big theme this year and at SaaStock. With an established, I would say, mature company such as Contentsquare, how are you bringing AI, into the company? What's your way? What are the challenges that you have there, being this kind of mature company, rather than I'm building today the startup and it's just going to be AI native that you would hope? But talk to us about that.
I think it's a very good question, and I see where you're going with this question, and I think this is so important, because if you look at generative AI, it's not yet perfect. Yeah, yes, it has hallucination. Yes, it's not always the right answer, and etc. But at the end of the day, people who know how to use it are going to be 100 times more efficient than people that doesn't know how to use it. And if you don't practice and you don't train yourself into using it, you will never be good at it, And someone shared this analogy with me, and I think it's very, very true. We can look at Gen AI as a calculator. It's not because we introduced calculators that we stopped learning math, and we become much better at math, and we went way much further into understanding math since we have the calculator. But if you don't know how to use a calculator, you are on the side of that doesn't know how to do math at all, So the way we're doing it at Contentsquare is we created a team, we created a task force that was dedicated to evaluate all the use cases possible, because we can use generative AI within our own product to help our customer, but we can also use it into our Confluence pages to get faster answers. You can use it also, like SDR team can use it to send better email, Yep. So there are so many use cases that you can get. So our approach was, instead of trying to train every single people at Contentsquare, that would be expensive and not really efficient, let's have a task force. Let's identify the most interesting use cases for us, the ones that really add value, because you want to avoid using Gen AI just for everything because it has a price. And then once we have identified a use case and prove the value of that use case, deploy it with more people in the organization. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. I'm going to give you 2 more questions from me, and then if anyone in the audience does have a question, we'll go with 2 questions from the audience if there's anything. So I guess as Chief Product Officer, you're at the top of the product career ladder. What advice would you have in terms of like how you got there, and for others that may be kind of thinking of they're on that career path and getting to Chief Product Officer?
like I can speak about my own experience, but I don't know if it's like the general case. I started on the customer success side at Contentsquare, and at that time we did not have a product team, and our tech leader, our CTO, convinced our CEO and founder that they needed someone in between, and they just asked me if I wanted to do that product role, and I said yes. So, and I didn't know what was product at that time. I didn't know the difference between CSS and HTML. So I think product is such a new job that you should not be afraid or ashamed of going into product, If you love customer and if you love complex problem and if you like technology, you're going to thrive in product. So I would really say take any opportunity. And in terms of if you already are a product manager and you want to become a product leader, I think the main switch you have to do is to realize that my job is not to create a product anymore. My job is to create a team that is going to create the product. So you need to be ready to be less focused on the product and more focused on building the team that builds the product, And at the end of the day, it's not the same job. So I would say that my job is amazing. I love it. I love building organization and I love the strategy part in it. But sometimes I miss being an IC also, and being a product manager creating value on a daily basis. Yeah. So I would say that product manager career can be amazing as an IC also, and we should not always try to reach for management position. You see what I mean?
I know what you mean. Any questions for Lucie? Anyone got a specific question? Let me check. You have one at the front. I'm just going to get up. Just say your name and then your question.
Oh, hi, I'm Helen. I just would love to hear your perspective on how you think product and marketing can and should work best together.
So I think this is $1 million question. Now, I think this is extremely important, and we said our product at Contentsquare is to help our customer create better experience, and what we're saying is that to create better experience, you need to enable the quartet, and what we call the quartet is marketing, product, design, and tech all together. It's building on top of the product trio, because I think it's essential to have marketing into the loop. If you have a product team on one side and a marketing team on the other side, and both teams are not aligned on how to create value for customer, it's a disaster. Because if, as a customer, if you are being attracted with one value prop and then you start interacting with the product and you see another value prop, it's a nightmare. It's not efficient for the customer. It's really deceptive. So I think it's extremely important. And but it's not an easy thing to achieve. Our CMO is we come to a point where we are partner in crime, but I would say that at the beginning, because product management and marketing job are changing so much, it's really about sitting down and saying, okay, this is your scope, this is my scope, how we can collaborate. And I would say that there is no one size fit all. And it's really about sitting down with your marketing leader or your product leader and really without any ego, thinking of how we can best contribute to the company mission.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I think with that, we'll come to the end of the show and the podcast. And thank you so much, Lucie.
Thank you so much.
For being a great guest.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the SaaS Revolution Show. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you learned something from it, check out SaaStock.com/events to find all the upcoming SaaStock conferences around the world. Want exclusive SaaS content and actionable insights to grow your SaaS? Join our community of over 36,000 SaaS founders at SaaStock.com.